I'm Lauren from Beltline to Broadway. For those of you who don't know, I have a podcast. We're broadcasting live here from Broadway Con, and I am sitting with um, Alisa Hurwitz, better known as Dr. Drama to most of us. Hi, honey. How are
I'm
you?
so good. Well, I mean, besides the state of the world, yes,
Beside the state of the world. But being here at Broadway Con, I think is so lovely because it's like this little bubble of like-minded theater lovers celebrating this art form that we all love.
yes, it is a bubble of joy. To be here, to be with people who are so enthusiastic about, this art form that we love, and so it does kind of feel like a love injection, in the middle of a dark world.
It is because
Yeah.
there's a lot of crappy, shitty things happening in the world, but being here, I don't know, it gives me hope. People are being their authentic selves.
Yeah.
They're dressed, in their favorite character. It's a good vibe.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a good vibe.
I love to see, especially. I don't know why it makes me feel better when I see young people just being their full selves. I guess just knowing that the doors that have been open have allowed people to earlier on live their be their authentic selves. Just that always makes me smile.
Absolutely. It gives me hope for our kids. I mean, your
Yeah.
kids are much younger than mine, but it gives me hope that this next generation is
Yeah.
maybe be able to walk in a more equal, inclusive world. At least that's my hope.
Yeah. Well, we have this kind of central tenet in Judaism, which is my spiritual, and cultural, guiding forces, and of tikkun olam. Tikkun olam meaning, that it's our job as humans to make the world better while we're here. Not for some promise of it. This is just not my belief. I'm not saying it's
the
like,
tenet of Judaism.
yeah.
Yeah, our rabbi. So I'm married to my husband is not Jewish, and she explained it. To
Oh wait,
my
are you Jewish?
I'm Jewish.
Oh,
Yes.
I didn't know that. Hi, I'm explaining Judaism to a Jew. Hi,
Yes.
nice to meet
Hello,
you.
Nice to meet you.
I forgot, I'm not in New Hampshire anymore.
Not New Hampshire. But when our rabbi was explaining it to my husband, she's like, "You have to understand the relationship Jews have is this way while they're living.
Yeah.
Your relationship is that way, so you gotta."
Yes.
She was like, "You gotta find the diagonal."
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. So your last name is from your
His last
husband.
name-
Okay. Okay.
My last name is Feingold.
Oh, that I would have that would have I would have clocked that. Yeah.
One of the tribe. All
Yes,
right,
yes.
But you know what? This is a good segue because Jewish history, Jewish heritage has such a strong voice in theater. It always has.
Mhm.
But right now, we were just talking about the bedwetter and Severus Silverman. We've got Funny Girl with Beanie Feldstein. There's a lot of Jewish representation on stage right now,
Yeah.
and I love that so much.
I do too. I think it's a very deep, interesting conversation, about Jewish representation on stage, because I mean, Jews have crafted other people's stories
for a long time,
right? Which it needs to change. We need to tell our stories. And so something like the bedwetter, I know that Sarah Silverman, who is a Jew from New Hampshire, like me, should grow up in the same town. So it's kind of cool. But she's talked a lot about the idea that when your Jewish character is a heroine, when she's supposed to be beautiful, they always, interestingly, especially women, cast a non-Jewish actor. And so she's not her point is that not advocating that always a Jewish person has to play a Jewish character. There are people, I think, who have been approximate to Judaism, like Italians, like there's a lot of similarities, and they have picked up on some of the Jewish cultural pieces and get it. But it's something interesting, right? That when it's supposed to be the hero or beautiful, that they don't cast a Jew. And so in the bedwetter, well, Jessica Vosk is stepping in, and she's She's Italian, I believe, and so
I
she's
think
like,
Italian.
yeah,
And Casey's in that.
Casey. Yeah, so I think is she stepping in for Casey Levy?
Is she stepping in? For
I think
her?
so because she had long COVID, I
Yeah.
think, or she had COVID. Yeah, so she was a Jew. But anyway, I think that is an interesting discussion to have in the context of representation. In some ways, we've been overrepresented in terms of our voices, but how our stories told. I don't know if you saw Fiddler when it was off Broadway and the production in Yiddish.
Oh, I didn't see it in Yiddish.
That felt profound. I felt like, oh, this is the Fiddler that, for me, resonated in a way that was kind of at a new level.
And I think, when people talk about Jewish representation on stage, it's overlooked because it's not looked at as racial representation, and so it's not looked at in the same way. But I think it is so empowering to have people like Beanie, like the bedwetter story, having those stories told on stage,
right,
like Fiddler in Yiddish. I mean, that's
this is why representation, matters in this way. I think because we know that trauma lives in our DNA, changes our DNA, right? So you and I having that particular history, in our culture, informs how we use humor as Jews, right? So I think it risks going into caricature when you don't have that and you don't know that particular lineage in your bones of trauma and the particular way that Jews have used humor to survive.
And the work that they're doing at the Jewish Museum, with the Yiddish Fiddler production, with the most recent production of Harmony, which I was dying to see, I think is they're really telling our stories and bringing back that tradition of not the Jewish folk tales, because these aren't folk tales, but that Jewish storytelling, which I just love.
And at the same time, I think as Jews, we need to step away from telling other people's stories that aren't kind of the majority culture, stories, or generalizable. Porgy and Bess, right?
Yes.
It's complicated because it's a beautiful score.
It's a beautiful score.
But it's white people telling Black people's stories.
And that's not okay anymore.
No.
In 2022, let's just,
Yeah. Let's leave that aside.
Let's leave.
Yeah. Let's.
So you people who follow you know that you have a musical mental health series.
Yeah.
You were doing a musical and mental health panel with some of my favorite people. Fergie is a joy.
Yeah.
Raleigh people, if you're watching, Fergie Philippe will be on her panel. We know him as Cole House in our ragtime production of Playmakers, but he's here on Broadway and in Hamilton, and he'll be on your panel.
Yeah.
When you talk to these performers, and you've talked to so many of them pre-COVID, during COVID, and now post-COVID. Post-COVID, is there a through line to a lot of these stories that you're seeing, or a commonality?
Gosh, I don't know. So I stopped doing the Instagram series once I went back to work in person. So which was about a year and 3 months ago. So I don't kind of have that through line of that kind of those conversations happening in that particular way. So I don't kind of have an apples to apples comparison, but I know stuff that came up, for actors was definitely during the pandemic was definitely identity, because, at the very beginning, people were absolutely stopped in their tracks.
Literally.
Yes.
Move out of your dressing room, leave everything.
Yeah. And now the actor can't act, and that, that evolved as the pandemic went on. But, people were stuck sitting with themselves saying, who am I if I'm not, if I'm not working, if I'm not productive, if I'm not hustling, if I'm not creating?
The artist without the audience.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about a lot on our show, and I've talked about with you, it is a tremendous psychological toll.
Yeah.
Who are you without that?
Yeah.
If that's what you've been working your whole life for.
Yeah. And, you know, and I think that's analogous for all of us. You know, who am I if I'm not working? I think the pandemic posed that question for a lot of us. I know for me, I really felt like I was you know, I came to a place where I was okay, that I could live a life and not be quote unquote productive in the capitalist sense. It really made me kind of question how I've internalized capitalism. And I already was a minimalist. I don't like stuff, but also the value of like, you know, that we're told of like being productive. You know, it's so good to be busy. Like you're somehow better if you're busy. And I from the pandemic, I wholly reject that now.
I think there is so much to stillness, which in everything negative that came out of the pandemic, to be still, to be with our families, to reconnect in that way and form these relationships and bonds. I don't know. There's just something about my dad calls it the lost art of doing nothing, but that stillness that a lot of us treasured over the pandemic and don't want to give up so easily.
Yeah, and I think we can find ways to reject the pressure to go, you know, to do, to yeah. There is value in stillness. How are we to know ourselves if we're always moving, right? And to the extreme, that can be a trauma response. You know, if you're constantly moving, then you never have to sit with the feelings. But sitting with the feelings, it's hard. But it allows us to understand ourselves better, you know, and really be participating in life instead of just kind of skirting over the surface of it. And the system of capitalism really wants that from us. It wants us to keep producing. You know, I think of that scene in The Matrix when we see all the human bodies plugged in. You know, you just see like thousands, tens of thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them. And I, you know, and I think, okay, that's capitalism. That's what it wants. And I am choosing to take the blue pill. Is that right? Is it the blue pill that he takes? I don't know. Oh, the red pill. Thank you. The red pill. I took the red pill.
Leave it to the millennial. He'll
Thank
know.
you.
All right, fine. Leave it to him. My son is behind the camera here piping in. So, what I do want to ask you, because I think so many people have mixed emotions about this, performers and audience members, is coming back to the theater. That was one thing.
Yeah.
Coming back to the theater unmasked, that's now another hurdle.
Yeah.
I feel like every time these challenges are presented to us, people really beat themselves up about how they're feeling about it because they want to support the arts, they want to support theater, but their comfort zone, everybody has a different level of comfort. So can you speak to that for audiences and for performers who are now dealing with no more masks on Broadway, although some shows are still enforcing?
Yeah, it's complicated. I really think, like a lot of things, that these choices are personal. I also feel like that's a Jewish thing.
Yes.
to say, you know, well, this is what's right for me. I don't know what's right for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel uncomfortable that the mask mandate is dropped. I will remain masked when I go to see a show later. Yep. And I tested for I tested myself before I came, make sure I wasn't, going to be spreading. I mean, just, you got to do what's right for you. And I think it's okay if you for people who don't feel comfortable. I think it's okay for people who do feel comfortable. I think it's okay, if people feel like the system has not had enough of a reckoning yet. For people to, for a person to come back and participate in the capitalism of that is Broadway. It's art too, but it's capitalism. Yeah. I really think ultimately it matters that as an individual you feel comfortable with your decision and just let it be that. I feel that there's a lot of value in knowing what your values are. because that's like the touchstone. And also that it's impossible to be a person in capitalist society and always operate at 100% ethical operation.
I absolutely agree because it's a business, like you said, it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask you. We had the Tootsie conversation. We had the Mrs. Doubtfire conversation. Tootsie's, I think, still on tour. Doubtfire just closed. You're such an advocate for LGBTQIA individuals. I don't even want to say performers because it's just individuals. Now we're going to have some like it happened.
Yeah, it's like never ending.
We keep thinking we're done,
Yeah.
and then we have another one. So, can you speak to the importance of representation on stage and some of the harm that these shows can do to our LGBTQIA friends?
Yes, it's heavy, right? Because people say, well, that it's the person, the character in the dress is like the hero, and so how can that be bad? Here's the thing, I think when it comes to representation and when it comes to any kind of racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, transphobia, queerphobia, we have to listen to the people who know, and the people who know are the people who have the lived experience. That makes you an expert. And so trans and non-binary folks have said this trope of the man in the dress is harmful for several reasons, including that when the joke is that it's so funny to see a man in a dress, that makes us the butt of the joke. And it also reinforces this idea that trans women are just a man in a dress, which is not true. Trans women are women.
And when we have these conversations and debates about abortion issues and things like that, we have to include trans women in the conversation.
I feel so strongly about this, that inclusive language, including people in the conversations about being marginalized when it affects, more than one group, matters, because the patriarchy wants to hold on to power. The white, cis, able-bodied patriarchy wants to hold on to power, to their power. And so if you are a cisgender woman or you are a non-binary person who has a uterus, they want to oppress all of us. We are in it together. Not only is it right as a human to care about the oppression or the marginalization of any group, and there's an and, we are all in it together. We are. And so it does not erase women, because saying that people need abortions doesn't erase women, because people includes women. People includes women, and we can't erase the people who are maybe marginalized in more than one way.
Absolutely. In disability culture, so my daughter's on the spectrum, and so we become advocates in disability culture, and in disability culture to say nothing about us without us. So.
yes, nothing about us without us. And I think that can be applied across the board. Yeah.
So this is your 4th year doing musicals and mental health here at Broadway Con.
Yeah.
What can people expect from this year's panel?
So I mean, we're back live again, which is fantastic. It just feels so different. And I'm glad that, there are ways that now we can do that, safer. And, I've got Fergie Philippe, as you said, and joining the panel with Ali Ewalt, Nick Walker.
We've got some amazing people
and Leslie Rodriguez Kritzer. So I expect that the conversation is going to be really lively. We're not going to not have enough time. We never do. It's a conversation that, I think people really want to have. It just seems like people are really engaged in conversations about mental health, especially since the pandemic, realizing, mental health doesn't mean like you need to be put into an inpatient. It doesn't only apply to that situation. We all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. And how do we take care of that in a really complicated world?
Yes.
in a world where there are systems that harm our mental health. And and just as an individual on this planet, being human is hard, ridiculous, wonderful. I mean, it's just so many things, but it's complicated. So I'm looking forward to like the audience being there in person, because that is kind of my favorite part about it. And having questions from the audience after, and engaging in that conversation even further.
And I think anytime we have conversations about mental health, it's just a gateway into having more conversations and normalizing the conversations. So
100%. Yeah.
I appreciate so much what you do, and I'm just so glad to be here with you.
I'm so glad to be here. I know, live and in person.
Live and in person. We're usually on Zoom, so this is really nice.
Yes.
But thank you so much. Tell everybody who's watching, when are the Broadway Con panels tomorrow, so that they can come if they're in New York.
Yeah.
And how people can find you if they're not in New York and follow you.
Yes. So I'm at the Dr. Drama. So THEDRDRAMA on Instagram and Twitter. I am tomorrow's panels. We got musicals and mental health at 10. And then I have Taking Back Control, the psychological power of reclaiming the narrative. And that's going to be another great conversation. That one's at 11:20. And Brittany Mack from Six is on that. Chesray Dolfa, who's the artistic director of the Broadway Advocacy Coalition, is going to be in that conversation. Grace Aki, who is a playwright. I don't want to forget anybody. Oh, Lord. I did not have enough coffee.
Okay, so people can find the entire schedule with the lineup on the Broadway Con Broadway Con website, and I will list it when we list all of our links, so people can find it.
Yes, Helen Park, K-pop composer and composer of one of my favorite family movies, Over the Moon. Just glorious music, just for the thing. And I'm forgetting somebody, and that's I'm just going to blame Mommy Brain on that. Yeah,
I know Mommy Brain very well. So.
it's perpetual.
Well, thank you for hanging out.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy your shows.
Thank you.
Going to see shows today before going to work tomorrow. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think of that as work. It's really.
It's a joy.
It is. It's I think I've said this to you before. The idea that you have to give it away to keep it. This is my offering. I don't mean give away what you don't have. I mean give away what you have in abundance. This is my offering. And so this really, really doesn't feel like work. This fills me up.
I love this so much. All right. Well, thank you.
Yay.
And follow Dr. Drama on all the socials.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here with me.
My pleasure.